Hey, I am going to walk you through my cast on Elemental Ailments Comet/Ice Nova setup for my Stormweaver. This is not a full build guide and it's not meant to be super in depth. Think of it more as a showcase, kind of like here's my setup, take it as it is. Important notes before we start. First and foremost, this build originally started at around 15 div. At that budget, it already cleared pretty much everything in the game. What I'm showcasing here, however, is a roughly 500 div. One of the biggest currency sinks was my amulet, mostly because crafting didn't go particularly well. But also like everything got so much more expensive. Second, this build relies on a few key uniques that are basically non-negotiable in my specific setup. Because of that, your gearing flexibility is somewhat limited and you'll often need to stack resistances in a few available slots. This will put pressure on certain gear pieces, so keep that in mind when you're gearing it up. Third, this build requires a weapon swap. I've covered this in more detail in a previous video, but the short version is that you need two Adonias and swap between them to generate and consume power charges. This interaction lets you fully take advantage of Pinnacle of Power, which is a skill that is given to you through the Adonia. It provides 156 more elemental damage if you have 8 power charges, and allows you to inflict all elemental ailments with any elemental damage, which is huge. That interaction is a massive game changer for this setup, so I'll briefly touch on it, how it works, but I have a video dedicated to that in my channel. Weapon-wise, I'm using, like I said, 2 Adonias for the main one. The most important stats in order are +1 level to all spell skills, high mana roll, and high cast speed. Everything else is largely irrelevant. If you have the currency, the end game version is corrupted Adonia with +1 level of all cold spells. For the second Adonia, the swap one, the only stat that matters is the +1 to maximum power charges, since we are trying to stack as many power charges as we can. For the body armor, I'm playing the Covenant. The main reason for this is that it effectively gives us spell damage leached as life, which is extremely important since we no longer spend mana to cast spells, we spend life instead, and mana is then layered on top of our life pool through Mind Over Matter to kind of be, our EHP stuff. The most important stat on the Covenants are, in order again, spell damage leached as life, mandatory, since in 0.4 you can have a Covenant without that, so that needs to be on it. Then flat life, which is nice. One modifier that you absolutely do not want, which also I think is a requirement, is the one that says spells gain their mana cost as extra life cost. That mod is terrible for this build and will make it feel awful to play, so avoid it completely. If you have more currency, you can look for Energy Shield, nice for scaling via Eldritch Battery, and life cost efficiency, which makes the build significantly smoother. For the gloves, we are using Malagaro's Virtuosity for the reason that it sets our critical strike multiplier to 250%, and you don't have to worry about stacking that. And also the other stats are kind of nice on these gloves. The helmet and boots are rare items and mainly serve to fix resistances. Afterwards, you are looking for maximum mana, intelligence, and energy shield bases, since armor and evasion ones do not really do anything for us. On boots, you obviously want movement speed, but if you can get a high chaos resist roll on there, it's very, very nice since we are trying to reach 75%. For the rings, you have 2 options here. The first ring, you go for resist, flat mana, percentage increased maximum mana, and maybe rarity if you want. For the second ring, either you juice up your first ring and buy a very expensive one and then use Calandra's Touch, or you do what I'm doing, which Dream Fragments, which is Dream Fragments. It's a very cheap unique ring, and I think it's very, very good. It provides us with 18% increased maximum mana when it's quality up and the highest roll also. So like 15%, which is the highest roll, and then quality up, which is a lot of EHP and a lot of damage through Archmage. Some cold resist and cannot be chilled or frozen, which is very nice. On your amulet, if you're planning to play cast on crit or blink, you'll need more spirit, or you'll need a spirit amulet. But if not, the amulet becomes much, much cheaper in that case, and you're looking for +1 to level of all spell skills, flat mana, increased percentage maximum mana, and resistances or rarity as a filler. For the scepter, exactly like the amulet, if you do not plan on playing cast on crit or blink later, your threshold of how much spirit you need will go down significantly, and that will make the scepter much more affordable. So you're looking for a scepter with around 160 spirit, and then the other stats are high maximum mana roll, intelligence, and other attributes if needed. For the belt, you have two choices here. Either you go for a rare one for focus on resist, mana, and probably attributes if you need them. Otherwise, you go for Headhunter. For the socketables on these items, main Adonia, +1 to level of all spell skills. Swap Adonia, 50% chance to gain additional power charge. Helmet, increased cost efficiency. It's a bit expensive, but I think it's worth it. For the scepter, increased spirit. Amulet, evocational practitioner, crit and energy scaling. And body armor and boots, Soul Core of Tacti for chaos resist. And the gloves, Rune of Spinning for the cast's speed. For the flasks and charms, for both mana and life flask, prioritize short duration recovery. They're mainly emergency buttons. They're probably save your life once in a while, but if you have extra currency, Allroth is a very strong option because of the instant recovery, and those 900 life will absolutely save your life, I think, in certain circumstances. For the charms, the only one that I strongly recommend is the cannot be stunned. The other ones, you can do whatever you want. Now, let's go through the gem setup pretty quickly and explain what each setup is doing. Elemental Storm is your Ascendancy skill. It triggers whenever you crit with spells and spawns an Elemental Storm based on the elemental applied. Since we apply all elemental elements through Pinnacle of Power, the actual element does not matter. So, this is a trigger for Elemental Archon, which is a buff that grants us 25% more damage and increased elemental ailment chance. The buff is very strong, but it's not permanent. It has downtime, and during that downtime, you cannot reactivate it. I think it's 20 seconds, which is a bit long, but still, it's a very powerful buff when it procs. We put prolonged duration here, prolonged duration 2, obviously, life tap and zenith 2. Life tap will be kind of reoccurring in the build because we are trying to not use our mana at all. Pinnacle of Power in the main Adonia has heightened charges. It gives us a chance for a significantly longer buff duration if it procs. Prolonged duration 2 and called Mastery. Life Remnant from the Covenant. We put Harmonic Remnants, Remnant Potency, and Catal Rejuvenation. Catal Rejuvenation grants cooldown recovery stacks when you pick up a Remnant up to 40%. And that's very nice for Ice Nova, not Ice Nova, Ice Bomb. Ice Nova is our main clear skill. It has pinpoint critical since we don't care about critical damage. Zenith 2, life tap, obviously. Astral Projection, and the last support gem, either you go Rakyata if you have the money. Otherwise, anything will work depending on your needs. If you want increased AoE, if you need more damage, you can figure out something that works for you. Astral Projection is extremely good for survivability, I think. It lets you cast Ice Nova from range, which keeps you much safer, even if it has its negatives, but I think it's worth it. Frostbomb is our infusion generator. We put Harmonic Remnants, obviously, Overabundance 2, Spell Cascade, Short Fuse, and Life Tap. Mana Remnants, we will allow Mana Overflow, so that's more EHP. We put Harmonic Remnants and Remnant Potency. Siphon Elements is a spirit reserving gem that helps with generating infusions. We put Harmonic Remnants in there and Cold Mastery. Elemental Weakness is my boss curse. I just use it on bosses. I put Heightened Curse there, Helix Fulmination, Lingering Curse, and Magnified Area, and also Life Tap. Archmage is a massive damage multiplier, but it costs a lot of spirits, but it's still worth it. We put Lightning Mastery for the extra +1, and Diala's Desire, optional if you need reservation efficiency, otherwise it doesn't really do anything. Maybe it gives you it gives you the +1, which is nice, but yeah. Firestorm is our power charge generator weapon swap. This is the only skill that we need to put on both weapon sets. The other ones, you can all put them on weapon set 1. For the supports, Pinpoint Critical, Life Tap, Spell Cascade, and Unleash. Spell Cascade and Unleash are critical here. It allows instant kind of bug-free power charge generation without delays. Again, if you don't understand how or why we're doing this, you can just refer to my previous video. Cast on Elemental Ailments is our last gem setup. We put COMET in there, pinpoint critical again, add Series bloodletting for the extra physical gained, Zenith 2, and for the final slot, if you want single target, it's Living Bong. If you want better clear, you go for Spell Cascade. That's it. That is it. Also, Zenith 2 is pretty much used in all our damaging ability because we are always above 90% of mana, and that 30% more damage is very, very nice to have. Okay, let's talk about the tree now. So for the Ascendancy, I went Refracted Infusion, then Storm Recollection. For the Elemental Effusion generation / uptime, then went to Tempest Collar for the Elemental Storm and kind of enable the Elemental Archon through that. And finally, Multiplying Squalls. For the tree itself, I went through here, then grabbed Elemental Force for elemental resistances and increased elemental damage, which is always nice. Critical Overload for the crit chance and spell damage. Even though this node is a dead one, it's worth it in my opinion. Then passed all the way through to Endless Blizzard for the +1 level of all cold skills. Then I went straight left to grab Mind Over Matter, grabbed Empowering Confusions in the way for the increased spell damage if you consumed an Elemental Infusion recently, and Everlasting Infusion for the skills have 10% chance to not remove Elemental Infusions but still count as consuming them, which is very, very good for COMET with Fire Infusions. But this one is on Skill Weapon Set 1, which is the main set, and I might as well consider it, in the main tree. Then here I pathed to Sacrificial Blood for the increased life cost of skills, which is not good, but we get 40% increased spell damage with spells that cost life. So if you're struggling with life cost, I suggest not taking this until you invest more in your life cost efficiency. Then I pass through here for Reverberation and get all those nodes of increased area of effect because it's nice. Then got All Natural for elemental resist and elemental damage, Breaking Point for some elemental ailments, magnitude, and finally Storm Charge for elemental damage, 40%, and increased critical strike chance. Then I passed to the top here to get Casting Cascade, which gives us 18% consistently. It reduces our spell damage, but that's okay. We have so much, we're stacking so much increased and additive damage that it's pretty much irrelevant to a certain extent, and we gain a lot more from increased cast speed, specifically in maps. So yeah, and a Blessing of the Moon and all the nodes leading to that for the increased skill effect duration, so we can have a longer Pinnacle of Power buff. Now, if we move to the right, here again, critical exploit for crit chance. Then we grab all the echoing nodes for 90% increased elemental damage since we apply all those elemental ailments. We grab Dynamism for the increased damage if we've triggered a spell recently, and the increased energy in all the nodes leading to that. Then we move towards Eldritch Battery, grab Arcane Intensity for spell damage stacking, not spell damage stacking, for spell damage increased per mana since we are stacking mana, and for the increased maximum mana and increased mana cost of skills, which is irrelevant. We don't care about that. Then here we grab Control and Magic for the crit chance and all the nodes on the right for the critical strike chance leading to that. And we also take Remnant Attraction for the 10% chance to create an additional Remnant, which is always nice. And finally, we grab Careful Assassin again for the crit chance since we do not care about the crit damage. Now, I will go through the jewels and then finally talk about the second weapon set. For the jewels, I have Heart of the Well. This is mandatory. For the Leech is instant. Otherwise, it's unplayable. So you need to buy one with at least, I would say, 12% Leech is instant. And that will be good. Then this one I took Controlled Metamorphosis with Medium Small Ring. That enables me to take Stormbreaker, which is a huge damage increase because it gives us, I think, 80% since we have Shock, Chill, Freeze, and Ignite. Then we also take Sudden Escalation for the 16% increased crit chance and 8% increased cast speed if we crit, which we always do. We are at 82%. Empowering Remnants 15% chance for elements you create to grant their effect twice. Also very good for Comet and Fire Infused Comet more specifically. And finally, Royal for the area of effect. Here, I got myself a From Nothing that applies to nodes in the radius of chaos inoculation, and that enables me to take Invocated Efficiency for the 40% increased spell damage for triggered spells, 11% of damage as extra chaos, Thin Ice for the 50% increased damage with hits against frozen enemies and 20% increased freeze buildup. And finally, Harsh Winter for the cast speed and increased skill effect duration. So yeah, those are the other two jewels. You can also go for Heavy Frost if you do not have a Rakyara. I think it's good in general mapping. Or you can also go for From Nothing that affects Wild Surge Incantation. And here you get Sacrificial Blood, Intense Flames, and where is it? Chronomancy. Yeah, that's it. But I still think getting the From Nothing that applies to Chaos Inoculation is a bit better than the one for the White Surge. I think it's a bit pricier too. So yeah, that is it for the main setup. Now, for the weapon set 2, the only thing we're looking for here, and we have enough points to do that, is grab all the power charge nodes. So this one +1, here another +1, and here +2. And then grab this one for the ability to gain power charges when we consume an elemental infusion, which we always do, almost consume them all through Firestorm. And then we can generate the 8 power charges. You can also take these. It's pointless, I think, doesn't matter, but you can also take them. So yeah, that is it for the skill tree.